Hello and welcome back to another episode of Common Knowledge. It is so great to have you here for our 156th episode, where I take a look at least 10 common Magic the Gathering cards and tell you if they are good in the Pauper format or not. How about we get started? And we will start with Lunge. Lunge is 2 and a red for an instant. Lunge deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. Didn't used to say planeswalker, but that doesn't matter for our purposes. There are no planeswalkers in Pauper. One of the reasons that I enjoy Pauper. Not that I don't like planeswalkers. Planeswalkers are fine. I played in the original Lorwyn block. That was my first pre-release, actually, was the original Lorwyn. And so it was cool. Hey, here's a new card type. But over time, I've just become a little bit tired of planeswalkers. And Pauper's a great place to play when you don't have to worry about them. How do we feel about Lunge, though? This is 4 damage for 3 mana at instant speed, which I do kind of like. But being split up like this isn't as useful. The 2 damage is always going to go face, or one of the 2 damages is always going to go face, just because of the nature of 1v1 60-card formats like Pauper. And then you're doing 2 damage to a creature. 2 damage is fine. It's, not terrible. But do you really want to pay 3 mana to deal 2 damage to a creature with an incidental 2 damage to the opponent? I don't think you do. Even the red burn decks that are out there, probably don't mind having something that takes out a creature and still hits the face instead of playing something like Scred that can only hit a creature. But at 3 mana, then you're starting to get real diminishing returns on how much damage you're doing per mana spent, and that's probably not good. That just kind of puts this out of playability there. I think it's a cool card still. I think it'd be really nice in some kind of cube maybe. Card I probably would just want to have in my collection just because, I don't know, it's a Mercadian Mask card and it's kind of cool. But from a Pauper perspective, constructed 60 card Pauper, nah, not really. I think we can give this thing, I'm still going to give it like a 2.9. It's not bad, it's just not very good. And that's kind of the thing with a lot of these cards. Hey, this card might be a little better. Ferocious Pup is 2 and a green for a 0/1 wolf, which doesn't sound great, but what else does it do? When this creature enters, you create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So you're really getting 2/3 worth of stats for 3 mana. And that's still not amazing, but this is blinkable, bounceable. I love talking about things that can blink or bounce. Green is not the best color for blinking and bouncing, so you'd have to pair it with something like white or blue. But still, getting 2/2 wolves while you have this 0/1 wolf. No, I'm trying to make it sound better than it is, but I think this is mostly just kind of a bit of a bummer card. It's just too normal. Cute dog, but that's about it. This is the Corsa 2020. Jumpstart 2022 has the same art. I don't know. Too vanilla. You're getting barely better than a grizzly bear for a whole extra mana above a grizzly bear. I don't love that. I can't get too excited about it. I'm gonna give this thing I'm going to give it a 2.3, which is mainly just the power and toughness of the creatures combined. Maybe a bit of a joke there, but I think the card is also a bit of a joke when you think about it. What's our next card? Basri's Acolyte, 2 and double white for a 2/3 cat cleric with lifelink. When this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures you control. Okay. So we just talked about a 2/3 worth of stats for 3 mana. This is a 2/3 worth of stats for 4 mana. But it does a lot more than that, so you can't really define it that way, especially with the Enters trigger here. First of all, lifelink. Lifelink's just good. We've seen lifelink creatures work really well in plenty of Gates-style decks, the Sacred Cat, the Outlaw Medic, things like that. So you can't discount lifelink when you see it. 4 mana for a lifelink creature is more expensive than most Gates decks probably want to play, especially when there's double white pips here. Yeah, almost all the decks that are playing Gates are generally playing white in some sort to play those Sacred Cats and Outlaw medics. So maybe it's not so bad, but I think if you're paying 4 mana for 2/3 worth of stats, even with lifelink, you're kind of feeling a little bit bad about it. But the Enters trigger does help. So when this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter of each of up to 2 other target creatures you control. So you do have to have 2 other creatures on the board that aren't Basri's Acolyte, because it can't put the counters on itself, which is bad. You'd like at least one of those counters to be able to go on Basri's Acolyte to make it a 3/4 with lifelink. That feels a little bit better for 4 mana. Still, though, you could imagine this as 4 mana for a 4/5 worth of stats, just knowing that only 2/3 of them work for the lifelink part. I think this is maybe asking a little too much. Sure, white has plenty of decks that can go wide. We have a couple of decks in the format right now that are very good at going wide and tall. You have like the general mono white weenie decks that are playing things like Leonardo and just putting down tons of inspectors and things like that. But you also have the decks that are going wide and tall, more like the Salt Road Pack Beast decks, which seem really cool. They're playing a bunch of Ornithopters and Phyrexian Walkers and things like that to just put a bunch of stuff on the board, and then you get these really tall guys that are both big and drawing you cards, cantrip with themselves, and it's a really cool deck. And I don't think Basri's Acolyte really goes in either of them. Maybe the mono white weenie one, but you don't. I think it's too slow for that deck. That deck is so much more aggressive than this one, than this card would work into. Maybe you could make it work. Yeah, you're pumping up some of the other creatures. You could even sneak in Leonardo and bring this back to your hand and be able to play it again to get more of those counters on the board. Not that you would. This is too expensive for that, and you'd probably want the lifelink damage to go through instead of sneaking it out for Leonardo, even though Leonardo would almost assuredly do more damage. It's interesting. I like it. I just don't love it, and I don't think that it makes the cut in the decks that might want it. Art the same for all these. Ooh, I like that border treatment on that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, art's the same on all these. Interesting that it's been 2 different Jumpstart sets. But yeah, probably the best card we've seen today. I'll give it a 3.4, I think. But I probably wouldn't go much higher than that. Nip Gwillian. I like Nip Gwillian. I was just talking about liking Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, and Eveningtide fits in there as well. Nip Gwillian is a Orzhov hybrid, so white or black, for a 1/1 hag creature, and she's got lifelink. So we just talked about Sacred Cats and things like that. Sacred Cat's a single white mana for a 1/1 lifelinker. The reason Sacred Cat is a lot better than Nip Gwillian is that it has that embalm, so you can bring it back from your graveyard back to the battlefield. So it's kind of like having 2 of those things. If you mill it into your graveyard, you can still use it. So some people will discard it, or some people will just let it be milled with something like oh goodness, Malevolent Herbal. Jeez, why am I forgetting all the card names these days? So it has a lot more utility than Nip Gwillian. But Nip Gwillian, as you can see, with the Orzhov hybrid, it fits into more kinds of decks. You don't have to play white at all to be able to play a card like this. So if you wanted to go, I don't know, Black Gates, you'd probably add another color in there, right? You could do Golgari Gates, maybe a little Golgari Gates that uses the pest mascot and some of the new Secrets of Strixhaven cards that care about gaining life. Nip Gwillian kind of fits in there with some lifelink. I don't know. It's not particularly good. It's a fine 1-drop, but we have better 1-drops that do this and do it better than Nip Gwillian can. But it is always fun to put a lifelink around on turn 1, and this creature does that. At common, no less. Let's go ahead and give it I'm going to give it a 3, but that's about it. Next is Eager Shade for 2 and a black. Cool looking art here. We get a 2/3 Phyrexian Shade, and at the beginning of your end step, if an artifact or creature was put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. We generally like these things, right? We've seen Gixian Infiltrator. Well, let me just pull up Gixian Infiltrators so we can have a little point of comparison here. Gixian Infiltrator. So Gixian Infiltrator, this is 2 mana, so it's a mana less. You are getting worse stats, but when you sacrifice another permanent, you put a 1/1 counter on Gixian Infiltrators. A little different here, because you can sacrifice so many more different kinds of things that work for Gixian Infiltrator, like your fetch land kind of things that you can do. Plus, you can sacrifice artifacts using something like Krark Clan Shaman, and you can do all sorts of things with those that you couldn't do with Eager Shade, because this is only happening once per turn. Gixian Infiltrator can happen as many times as you sacrifice things. But it still is something that can grow turn over turn. Well, your turn over your turn. You can't do it on your opponent's turn either, because it does specifically say at the beginning of your end step. But it is kind of nice to have a creature that keeps growing. I do like cards like this because on a long enough timeline, you are getting mana positive, or you're getting more mana value out of the mana that you spent for this card, because it continues to grow with you as the game goes on. And those are cool. That's why I really like something like Saz's Chocobo in Standard right now, because if you're making your land drops, that thing continues to grow and grow and grow, and suddenly you end up with, hey, I spent 1 mana and I've got this 5/6 on the board. That feels pretty good. Now, with the higher starting mana cost for this, and knowing that you're going to have to continually keep this thing on the board, knowing that it has no sort of evasion, so it's always just going to be a relatively vanilla creature that does get bigger. It's fine. It should honestly be better. I think for having as cool of art that it does, you really deserves to be better. And the other problem is we just have so many good cards that the one deck that probably would want this would be Mono Black Sacrifice, and that deck is spoiled for choice when it comes to great cards that can go in there, whether it's the fodder creatures like Infestation Sage, or it's the payoff creatures like your Carrion Feeders or your Mortician Beetles or your Gixian Infiltrators. And this guy doesn't have room in that deck. And when you don't have room in that deck, there's nowhere else for you to really go. I'm going to give this thing a 2.5, respectable, normal kind of card here, but not good enough to really see any play whatsoever. Coal Hauler Swine is a great name for a card, and just a great idea for a card. It's 4 and double red for a 4/4 boar beast. It used to just be a beast, but now it's also a boar. Yeah, and they fixed it in the Jumpstart 2022, which is good. I mean, this is clearly a boar. Some boars have... I mean, we don't have boar tribal exactly, but we do have... I guess we kind of do, right? The Spider Ham talked about that kind of creature type, so there's maybe something you can do with that. Anyway, whenever this creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each player. Kinda spicy. You don't mind that. That could be... You could do fun things with this, whether you're shocking this creature. Is shocking this creature any better than just shocking your opponent? Most of the time, it's way worse. There's got to be a reason that you might want to do that. Your opponent has hexproof or something. Not something that really happens in Pauper, but I guess that's something you could do, maybe just for style points. Really, though, this thing is meant to be a good blocker and attacker, because your opponent now feels like even if they block this creature, the damage is still hitting them, or some amount of damage is still hitting them. And that you holding this up as a blocker means anytime they attack, they also feel like, I'm just going to attack and lose some life in the process, and you don't really like that either. This does remind me a lot of one of my favorite bad Magic the Gathering cards, Souls of the Faultless, which came in the original Ravnica block as well, just the next set over. Not a Pauper card, but I really do love Souls of the Faultless, which anytime this is dealt combat damage, you gain that much life, and your opponent loses that much life. This was always a fun thing when I had some Orzhov decks in high school. I loved playing this card and just having my opponents going, I don't know what to do with this. I don't have any flyers, and I don't really want to swing into it. And that was the point. They never wanted to swing into it, and then you could drain them with other things over the course of the game. And I had a lot of really good times playing with Orzhov in Guild Pack and that original Ravnica block. So this came out the set before and was a bit of a red variant of that, and slightly different. I mean, you're not gaining the life, and this is any damage, not just combat damage, which is also useful to know that if your opponent is, to continue to take it out of Pauper, I suppose. In Commander, if somebody plays a Blasphemous Act when you have this on the board, or you have this on the board and you play a Blasphemous Act, it's dealing 13 damage to every player, which is kind of funny. I do appreciate that, but your opponent's not going to scred this thing and deal 8 damage to it, because they're going to take 8 damage right back. That's fun. Not good, especially not for 6 mana. 6 mana for just a basically vanilla 4/4. Not amazing, right? But the idea that this thing could deter the opponent, or at least change the opponent's combat math when they're thinking about how they attack or how they block, that's kind of interesting. But I don't know what red deck is really wanting to spend 6 mana on a card like this. Like, would even the Gruul ramp decks care about something like this? I don't think so, because I think they just want their bigger and better cards that they can play. Their Eldrazi's, their Annoyed Altasaurs, their boarding parties, that kind of thing. I'm going to give this a 2.7 because I like it, but I just don't love it. Clay Revenant, single mana of any color, generic mana. For a 1/2 artifact creature golem, this creature enters tapped, and you can pay 2 and a black to return this card from your graveyard to your hand. That's a little sad. You like these kind of skeletal creatures, reassembling skeleton style cards to be able to return to the battlefield. This one, it is just 1 mana to cast. That's kind of nice. On turn 1, especially if you're going first, you don't really mind that the creature comes in play tapped. You mind it a little bit more if you're on the draw. But being able to just put out a creature on turn 1, kind of nice. And yeah, you get it back, but now it's essentially 4 mana to put out a 1/2 that enters tapped the next time you want to do it. That I'm a little less interested in. You could make the argument that, I don't know, Mono Black Sack might like this. You sacrifice it, then you can put it back into your hand at instant speed. You can play it the next turn. You can sacrifice it again. Or even the same turn. If you have enough mana, you can just play it, sack it, bring it back to your hand, play it, sack it, bring it back to your hand, and keep that loop going on. Those are possible. They just aren't especially efficient. And that Mono Black Sacrifice deck has plenty of other things that it will play that are just more efficient than this, even if they don't have as high of a ceiling as this. They have a much higher floor. And that matters, especially in a format like Pauper, where speed is prioritized quite a bit, and that format is only seeming to get faster. That Clay Revenant is honestly just way too slow for the format. I will give it a 2.4. A lot of kind of middling 2s today. And if we're being honest, that's where Pauper cards... that's where common cards should be. Pauper cards should be better than that, but common cards, most of them should not see play in the Pauper format. The Pauper format is... this might be, I don't know, a little bit controversial to say. I don't know, it doesn't feel that controversial to me. But I feel like all the cards that get played in Pauper are kind of like the mistakes. Like, how did that make it to common? It's too good for common. Lightning bolts, your brainstorms, your things like that. The cards that show up in Pauper decks are the best of the best at common rarity, and most of the time that means, oops, we've accidentally made too strong a one. And similar, I guess, to Commander in a way that a lot of that format is defined by design mistakes. Whoa, this thing was too powerful. It got banned out of standard or something like that. Or this combination of cards is too strong. You know, one of them had to get banned out of modern or something. But in Commander, hey, it's more loosey goosey, free for all. Just play them anyway. And so that's fun to see, or just the singleton nature of that format and the 100 card deck part of that format, so you don't get that card as consistently. It's not as bad. But for a format like Pauper, though, the good cards really are outliers over the bad cards. So you see a lot of the quote unquote bad cards that are in these kind of 2 rankings, and then you'll have other ones that will shoot up into the 6, 7, 8s, and that's just that's just what the format is. You take the best cards out of the format possible, and when this is a format that goes all the way back to alpha, you've got a lot of common cards to choose from, 10,579 to be exact, and that number will only continue to grow. Anyway, Clay Revenant, it's fine. Next up, Topple the Statue is 2 and a white for an instant. Tap target permanent. If it's an artifact, destroy it, and you draw a card. I like that from a flavor perspective. You know, if you topple something that's alive, well, it's tapped. it's down for a little bit, but you know it can get back up. But if you topple an actual statue, an artifact, it breaks and shatters, right? So it's destroyed. I like that. That's fun. Is it a good card? Not particularly. I mean, it's fine that it's a bit of a tempo piece here with the tapping. That it has a bit of modality, knowing that if your opponent is playing artifacts, it can destroy an artifact. But if they're not playing artifacts, or their artifacts aren't as good, this can tap anything. This can tap a land. That's cool. And it does replace itself with the drawn card. We like that too. Tapping a thing down is not all that great, especially when you can only do it once. You know, an Icy Manipulator is really good, but Icy Manipulator, you can tap something down turn after turn after turn. Rashad Port, something very similar to that. When you can only do it once, not as great. Destroying an artifact for 3 mana and instant speed, not that great. Drawing a card makes it go down easier, but I don't think it makes it a good card. So let's go with something like a 2.8. I do generally give some extra points for removal spells at all, because removal spells are good. They remove a problem thing on the board. That's always a good thing to have. But this one I don't think is anything all that special. Binding Geist, 2 and a blue for a 3/1 spirit. Whenever this creature attacks, target creature an opponent controls gets -2, -0 until end of turn. And it's got Disturb for 1 and a blue. Let's talk about this side first before we flip it over and talk about the other side. This is not terrible. You know, three mana for a 3-power creature, relatively on rate. The toughness isn't as good, but the toughness gets offset because whenever this thing attacks, it's making one of your opponent's creatures smaller from a power perspective. So maybe it's getting it to the point where it can't block this thing. Or it can't kill this thing effectively, and that's nice because then you're swinging in with a pretty solid creature that can either trade better with an opponent, or not trade. Sorry, that's not what I'm saying. That it can't be traded now, and so your opponent has to chump with their creature instead of something they thought they would be able to trade with. That's okay. Or they're taking 3 damage, which is also pretty good. Overall, though, I wouldn't say this is all that good. Let's see what happens when you disturb it and you flip it over. So Disturb says you can cast this card from your graveyard, transform for its Disturb cost. So once it's in your graveyard, which can be either the creature dying or this being milled into your graveyard, or you discarding it, whatever, you can pay the 1 and a blue at sorcery speed. And you get Spectral Binding, which is an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets -2, -0, and if Spectral Binding would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead. That's just so you don't continue to use it turn over turn over turn, because that would be, well, for this effect, it probably wouldn't be broken, but it would be a little messed up to be able to continually cast an enchantment like that. So you get I like these Innistrad creatures that disturb, because most of the time they will have a similar or complementary style effect on the enchantment part that they did with the creature part. This is all right. This is all right. It's not good, but it's all right. I like that it gives you some card advantage here. It's kind of 2 cards in one. You play the first guy, maybe he gets a few whacks in at the opponent before your opponent finally plays something big enough that will still be able to either trade or kill your Binding Geist when you attack with it. And now this goes to the graveyard, and now you have an enchantment aura that you can throw on any of your opponent's creatures that might help you out a little bit further into the game. So that's nice. Gives you more to do. But neither of the effects are really all that strong, and paying 5 mana over the course of both of these effects, I don't think really gets you your money's worth. It's okay, but probably not worth a slot in your deck. I'm going to go with a 2 point... I'm going to give it a 2.9. I think the card advantage part is what really tips it into that favor for me. This is our last card of the day. I think it is. And it's Clear a Path. Single red mana for a sorcery. Destroy target creature with Defender. Well, oh boy. That's quite narrow, isn't it? That is too narrow. We're getting too narrow now. This works on one deck, right? It's not even really like Turbo Fog, right? Because Turbo Fog isn't playing this exact. It's more like the Walls deck that has the combo to it that does play some fog effects. Yeah, this is so narrow, so incredibly narrow. I think it's so narrow that it's not even worth putting in a sideboard. I don't know how often the Walls deck even... Actually, you know what? I take that back. This also works against familiars. Specifically the Sunscape familiar. Because that's a wall with Defender. I don't think familiars and walls are prevalent enough in the format for you to justify any slot in your sideboard for a card like this. I think we have to end up giving this... I don't want to just give it a 1. Because if you're going up against a deck that does have things with Defender, this is a nice card. It's just that happens so rarely. I'm going to give it a 1.2. It just never... The situation almost never comes up. And so it's just not worth having a slot. It's not actively harmful to your game plan, I suppose, other than being a dead card in your sideboard almost all the time, which is enough of a sin. That's why it's getting that low of a score. But, it does what it says it does, and it does it relatively efficiently. It just is not a thing you ever need. So 1.2. Let's do a bonus card and then call it a day here. Steadfast Sentinel, 3 and a white for a 2/3 human cleric with vigilance. You can also eternalize it for 4 and double white. So when you pay 4 and double white, you exile this card from your graveyard, and you create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie human cleric with no mana cost, and you can eternalize only as a sorcery. So kind of similar to the Embalm that we talked about with the Sacred Cat. But this time, instead of just making a token copy of whatever it is you played, that's what Embalm does. Eternalize will turn the creature into a 4/4 black zombie that will also have the other creature types that the creature originally had. So, a 2/3 with Vigilance for 4 mana, not very good. A 6 mana 4/4 with vigilance is also not very good. But having the card advantage of having them on the same card is okay, I guess. It is 2 bodies. It's a lot of mana. That's 10 mana you're paying for. What is that? 6? Oh, no, I almost said it. For 6 power and 7 toughness. And I don't think overall that's a good enough deal. We just have better cards for that. Answer the question of what deck does this go into? You know, it's not going to go into any of those mono white decks that we talked about earlier. It's not going to go in Orzhov Blade. It's not going to go in Boros anything. I don't know. Could you? What is that? Secret District saying? Is it Protect the Past? Is that what that's called? No, that's not what that's called. You know the one I'm talking about, the Boros one from Secret District 7, red and white, and it's got flashback on it. You discard a card and you draw 2 and you gain 2 life. You could discard this and then eternalize it later. You probably wouldn't, though. I'm going to give this thing I'm just going to give it a straight up 2. And a lot of that is just the mana cost is too much for either side, and I don't think it's worth it to play. Vigilance is an okay ability, an okay keyword, but in terms of all the different keywords we have available to us, I'd say it's one of the worst, one of the weaker ones at the very least. So yeah, this card doesn't get much love from me. But you do, because I love you. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.